This video is brought to you by none other than Hire Heroes, you guys. Hire Heroes is your one-stop shop when it comes to virtual staffing and making sure that you have qualified talent with your business. One thing that I love about Hire Heroes, you guys, is they've actually gone through the process already of vetting and making sure that your staff member is well trained to best fit your needs. Whether you need help with social media work, posting things on your accounts, responding to people that send messages to your social media accounts, whether you need help with data entry or a multitude of other things that they're qualified to do, Hire Heroes has got you covered. If you're having trouble finding quality talent and number two, affording to be able to run payroll for that talent, Hire Heroes has got you covered with an affordable alternative to have a virtual assistant working for your business. There's a link down in the description of this video to where you can learn more about getting your own VA through Hire Heroes. I certainly recommend it. They're what we use in our business for all of our virtual assistant needs, and you will want to make sure that you check them out today. Hey, what's up, guys? Christian Brindle here, and I am back with another video where I'm having a conversation with somebody who's doing big time things in the industry. I'm here with longtime friend now of mine, Mr. Michael Weller out in Oklahoma. First off, Michael, how are you doing today?
It's a great day. It is a fantastic day. Excited to be here on the podcast with you. Appreciate the opportunity and look forward to sharing information that I have and learning from you and being able to help everybody watching.
I love it. I love it. I remember the first time I ever got a chance to meet you in person. We were at the first Medicare Con, if I remember correctly, and we got placed at an invite-only dinner that night, and it was when I think back of it, like that table, the people at that table, that was a great table to sit at. It was you, myself, Josh Lustig, and the Skanks, if I remember correctly, Landon, Gary.
You're absolutely right. Yep, Charles.
And Charles, and that was a fun evening. I remember that very vividly because, we had some great conversations, ate some great food, had a few drinks, which stimulated said conversations. And so, yeah,
absolutely.
I've gotten a chance to know you the last couple of years, and I think you're an incredible agent, and you're so good at what you do, but you're also just an awesome person. So I'm just glad we were able to kind of get a chance to do this. I want to start off, Michael. Anybody that might not know who you are, anybody that hasn't had a chance to talk with you, kind of hear your story, talk about how you got into the insurance space. How did that kind of happen? Because I've heard your story before, but I think it's a really great one, and I think the audience would be interested to hear.
I appreciate that opportunity. So I grew up in the insurance world. My dad worked for Prudential Financial for 36 years before stepping out into an independent agent role. So my dad was captive. He was a district and regional manager for Prudential. So I grew up with dad not coming to different events of mine. Dad had evening appointments, things like that. And so growing up, I always swore that I would never go into the insurance business. Yeah. And so as fate has it, and as God usually does, he opens up different doors, and it's our job to walk through them. Yeah. My wife was going to law school here in Oklahoma City at Oklahoma City University. And I thought that I was going to go into hotel restaurant management, food and beverage, had planned on working for Marriott or Hyatt, Hilton, some resort on a beach somewhere, being a general manager or something like that. And after about the first year, it dawned on me that my wife and her career would not be able to move every year or two when a new property opened up. And so I had a regular customer of mine, Bob Reese, and his wife. They came in once or twice a week for dinner. And one day, maybe a week after I had this revelation of what in the hell am I going to do with my life now, he said, "What are you doing with your life?" And I remember this just as vividly as you can imagine. I kind of chuckled and I said, "Man, I have no idea." And I explained to him the situation, and he goes, "Well, why don't you come be my office manager during the day? Be my office manager during the day. You can still work here at night." And I was 22 years old, something like that, and didn't mind working 12 hours a day. My wife was in law school, so she was gone 12 hours a day. So I would go to his office, be there about 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd leave his office about 2 o'clock. I'd be at the restaurant at 4, the hotel, work until usually midnight, something like that. If I was closing down the bar, maybe 2. Go home, get up, do it the next day, all over again, 5 days a week. And so eventually he comes to me and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "Man, you need to be an agent." And I said, "Bob, you know my dad's an agent. I don't want to be an agent." And Bob looked at me and he goes, "Man, you got 3 months to get your license or you're fired." And so I said, "Well, okay, then I guess I'm getting my license." So I had my license in like 45 days or something like that from that ultimatum. Got my license, started back in the business in 2001. Ended up writing some group business, life insurance, things like that. Worked for him for 2 years, and he came to me one day and he goes, "All right, Bubba, you ready to buy this place? I'm ready to go retire on the beach." So I was his retirement plan, and I didn't realize it. So I ended up buying his agency in 2003. So this is my 20th year as an agency owner. And for the first, 15 years roughly, I focused on group and life insurance, some ACA, things like that. Didn't really touch Medicare until really October of 18 is whenever I first started looking at Medicare. So right as AEP began, had no idea what AEP even meant or how to spell it, and everything else is history. So,
Wow. I mean, well, it's so interesting, right? Like that. I'm sure that in his mind, and I'm just kind of trying to, I'm picturing the situation. I'm sure in his mind, he probably was testing you to see if you'd get your license, and he's probably seeing, okay, like if he gets his license, that shows me that he'll follow through, and that shows me that he'll be the guy. He can be the guy. To kind of take on everything. He probably had this master plan, and without you even realizing it.
Oh, I guarantee you, I had no idea what he was up to. Yeah, I had no idea. But as soon as I got licensed, I mean, I was running his business for him. He was teaching me everything that he knew. And it's funny, one of his sayings used to be, "I've forgotten more about insurance than you know." And that used to make me so mad whenever he would say that to me. And now, having the experience of 22 years as a licensed agent, I understand exactly what he's talking about, especially with all the regulations changing over into Medicare 5 years ago. And I still have about 20, 25 groups in my book of business, but I do not market for group business or individual life insurance anymore. It's strictly senior benefits, and then ACA whenever it comes along.
Yeah. So let's pivot into the AEP conversation, right? So we are recording this in early September. We are trucking along to October 1st. We'll be there before we know it. Talk to anybody that's watching this a little bit about what is AEP like, if anybody's never been through it. What is it like? How can you describe it? What does it really look like in terms of how it starts versus how it finishes? Tony Merwin every year posts some wonderful, pictures of like before AEP, after AEP, and they always make me laugh. They never fail.
Absolutely.
Describe AEP for someone that's never been through it before.
AEP, I would say, would be the closest thing that I could describe it or compare it to, would be going into the week of the Super Bowl. Yeah. For just to try try to come up with something that's an image that maybe you can look at. And I'm not a huge football fan, but I can imagine it as starting off in the beginning of the year, and you're going through the regular season, and everything is building up, and then finally you're at the Super Bowl, and it is the most important time of the year for many agents. Not all agents. There are other ways to build an agency and grow throughout the year without putting so much focus on AEP. But I really think for beginning agents, AEP is that time of year to be able to focus on your business, grow your business more so than you've been able to through the rest of the year, and really, really bring home that trophy, so to speak, to stay with that same analogy.
Yeah. I think you hit it right on the head. And it's almost like, I kind of think of it almost like Christmas season. You hear Christmas music going on all the time. Everybody's thinking about it. Everybody is feeling the season almost in a sense. And I think agents and also clients feel that too, because they're seeing the advertisements. They're getting it from all angles, and it's on their minds, and they're thinking about it, and they're in the mood to have the conversation. Whereas the rest of the year, they might be a little bit more hesitant to have the conversation.
You're absolutely right. Everybody knows, every senior knows October 15th through December 7th.
Yes. For your experience, right? I mean, you've had so much experience as an agent, and then the past 5-6 years, as you mentioned, and pivoting into the Medicare space. Mm-hmm. What are some keys to being successful during AEP? Like, what are some things that agents need to, whether somebody's going into their first AEP, or maybe even they've been through a few, but maybe they could manage it a little better, maybe that they can get the most out of it.
Sure.
What are some keys to success throughout AEP, throughout that 7.5 weeks, give or take, time frame?
I would start off by saying prepping for AEP is extremely important.
Yes.
And until I went through a couple AEPs, I didn't quite understand what that meant. But if you're not prepped, if you do not have your game plan in place, if you have not already planned with different venues, with different referral partners, if you haven't set up all of your marketing for these 7.5 weeks, you're really on the defensive. You're just reacting to everything instead of being methodical about what you're going to be doing and being structured. You're kind of behind that 8 ball. You're really struggling to try to figure everything out when you should have had everything figured out a few months ago.
Yeah.
That's my first thought about AEP, now having the experience that I've had.
I think that's really good. And I think that's so true. Agents ask all the time, like, when should you start preparing for AEP? The best answer I think I've ever heard anybody say on that was December 8th is the time to start preparing for AEP.
That's not far off.
Yeah. But so let's say somebody has, done some preparation work and they're going into AEP. What are some things they should be thinking about once October 1st hits, and they are starting into the chaos? Maybe they have a small book of business. They're trying to retain the book of business. At the same time, they want to get as much new business as possible. What is the key, you think, to balancing that?
That's a fantastic question and very important. I've seen posts on the different Facebook groups that have said, well, I brought on 30 new clients, but I lost 40 of my book of business.
Yes.
And so you're going backwards, and it hurts your heart as an agent to see another agent going through that. I think that falls into prepping for AEP. I really put a lot of emphasis in September in reaching out to my current book, making sure that they understand that anything that they see on television, I have access to. We can help them with that. We have that relationship. There is no need for them to call an 800 number or pick up the phone when somebody's marketing to them. That if they see an advertisement on something that looks intriguing, to ask us, because we all have access to the same policies, the same plans.
Yep.
I send out emails. I send out actual letters to my clients, and I make sure that I'm letting them know, hey, we're getting ready for this time. What are you? And I don't mind asking these questions. A lot of people are, for some reason, afraid to ask the negative questions. What are you unhappy with? Has anything happened this year that you're unhappy with your plan? And I think it's a reasonable question.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know that somebody's unhappy about something, how are you going to fix it?
Yeah.
They may be blaming you for it, and they may be looking to go somewhere else.
And all the time, all the while, you don't even know it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times clients call after they've called the insurance company. Well, I didn't want to bother you with this. And I tell them, no, it's not a bother. That's part of the service that we provide to you. You shouldn't be this frustrated by calling a carrier and being on hold for 20 minutes and then talking to somebody that you're having trouble understanding, that does not do this every day out in the field like we do. The only education that they have is what's written on their computer screen. And I'm not knocking those people in those roles. They just don't have the same experience as a field agent.
Right.
Talking to pharmacies face to face, driving to a pharmacy and saying, hey, why is this prescription not being covered? What are you showing on your screen? And having that one-on-one real world experience with pharmacies or doctors' offices, billing clerks inside facilities, that's really where you get that experience to where you can help those clients. And the people at the carriers, they've never done that. They've done their training and they get what is printed out on their computer screen. And that's the real service that we bring to this industry.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more with you. And it is very true, that if you don't ask those, maybe questions that you don't want to hear the answer to, but they're necessary questions, that, a client will leave and you'll never know it. I mean, anytime we've ever lost a client, typically we didn't even know there was a problem,
Absolutely.
So I think that's very vital. I think that's very pivotal. Talk a little bit.
The first 2 weeks of October. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to speak over you.
No, go ahead.
The first 2 weeks of October is what I have scheduled for all of my current clients.
That's good. We're very similar in that regard. We try to get as much of the work with them done starting the first, this year, the second, because that's Monday, as we possibly can. And so I think that's very good for agents to kind of have that mentality on, because then you can focus a majority of the rest of the season on obtaining new business.
That's exactly what my plan is. And that's why I started in September. With the new rules, with the new compliance standards and things like that, you do have to be a little bit careful in what you're doing. If it's marketing, you have to have all of your disclaimers and everything else, trying to set your appointments. If you're trying to get the phone to ring, that's considered marketing. So you have to be a little bit careful in what you're doing and when you can market for AEP. So in September, this Friday, I have letters going out to all of my current clients. Hey guys, it's that time of year again. AEP is right around the corner. Please start gathering your information that we'll need to review your policy. And please look on October 2nd for a letter and an email from me I have them all directed to a landing page where they're going to be putting in their prescription drug information, a little questionnaire. Is there anything that you've seen over the last few months that interests you? Are you happy with your policy? Is there anything that you would like to change? There is a huge push for Medicare Advantage. Are you seeing some of these rate increases on your Medicare supplement plans? What are you looking at? Is there anything that intrigues you that we can have this conversation about? And with that, you're going to be able to find those MedSup clients who are finally ready to start looking at Medicare Advantage when maybe they weren't when they first enrolled at 65. And you're going to be the one that, if you're doing your job and you're reaching out to them several times a year and you're top of mind whenever it comes to these questions, you're going to be the one that's going to be able to help them make that transition from a MedSup into an MA, and then all of the complementary products that go along with them.
Yeah. 100%. I couldn't agree more. Talk a little bit about, Michael, the marathon of AEP. Do you have any tips as a veteran through AEP at this point, right? What tips do you have for somebody making sure that they have enough going on to keep themselves busy for the long haul? Because there's no worse feeling in AEP than running out of leads or running out of people to talk to. And also, like, by the end of it, you really start, you start feeling the exhaustion. I think a lot of agents do.
Absolutely.
What are some tips to really, like, making sure that you can really show the stamina to make it through the end in one piece?
I think that's a very important topic. And I was excited whenever you texted me and told me that you wanted to talk about this, because I think everybody struggles with this just a little bit. Yeah. And I know for me, it really hits me right around Thanksgiving, is whenever just being on edge that whole time, or trying to work on a level 10 and trying to put so much emphasis into AEP, it really hits me right around the week of Thanksgiving. I have a few days off. I intentionally schedule a few days off there to make sure, number one, that I'm loving on my family, that I haven't forgotten about my wife, my mom and other family members that I want to make sure that I'm reaching out to and being able to spend that quality time with. But it also allows me to recharge my batteries for that next 2 weeks that we still have, or 10 days, however that falls. So there's a couple things that I wrote down whenever we first started talking about this. And we've talked about the prep. And really, you've got to prep, and you have to overbook yourself if you're trying to make the most out of this time. Yeah. And if you find yourself where you are having downtime, honestly, the best thing that I can say to kind of a newer agent, or even honestly an established agent that is looking to continue that momentum, pick up the phone and start dialing your current clients. Yes. And be intentional with asking for referrals. Yeah. If that's the case, call a client and say, "Hey, Joanne, this is Michael. I am glad that we've gotten everything taken care of for you this year. Who else do you know that's in your same situation? Who else right now can you think of that is on Medicare that needs to review their plan? Just like we made a change for you this year because that was necessary. Who else do you know that needs to talk to me?" And then just pause. Just be quiet for a second, let them think. Yeah. And ask them specifically. And if they say, "Well, my sister maybe," great. Would you mind calling your sister now and saying, "Hey, I'm on the phone with my insurance broker. He helped me out this year. We've got a really good plan for next year. I think you need to talk to him." Just be straightforward with them. Say, "Hey, who else can I love on that, the same way that I take care of you, who would appreciate this the way that you do?" and people are going to refer you to their friends. So that would be my direct answer to your question. If you have any downtime, my list here, I think that it's super, super, super important to schedule everything. If you
100% agree. 100% agree. I'm so glad you said that.
Yes, it's and I'm not a scheduler, but for me, it's not something that comes naturally to me. I like to wing it a lot of times, but during AEP, whenever you're on this very shortened period or this window of being able to make changes for people, you really need to put in the prep. You need to be sending everybody a scope of appointment ahead of time. It's a 12-month scope now. There's absolutely no reason for you not to have the scope signed now for AEP. You'll be able to use it, then have them sign another scope. Starts over the 12-month window. You've got that for the next year if anything needs to happen. You're good to go that way. So prep and scheduling. Use this next couple weeks, getting into October 1st, to finish your prep, get all of your scopes signed, get them in their files, be ready to go. That way you don't have to worry about that pesky 48-hour rule. Be disciplined, stick to your schedule everything. Whatever your marketing plan is, make sure that it's all scheduled out for you. If that means that you're going to be knocking on doors with referral partners, again, you need to be doing that right now. Waiting until October 15th to do that, you're too late. But if that's something that you're going to be doing, let's say, for instance, you're working with corporations that are doing their annual enrollments for their group health insurance. Make sure that you're reaching out to them now. Say, hey, can I do a 15-minute presentation with any of your employees that might be retiring in the next year? They may be ready to move off of the group health insurance plan. During your open enrollment period, I can come in there and give a 15-minute presentation over Medicare, hit some high points for folks, maybe even some dependents that you have on the group health insurance plan right now. We can move over with a January 1st effective date and save the corporation a lot of money in premiums, save those employees a lot of money in premiums. So scheduling is important. And I also mean scheduling time with your family. Scheduling downtime. I think we all get into this rhythm, and I am so lucky. My wife supports me 100% during AEP. She knows that I'm gonna be gone first thing in the morning, and it's gonna be late before I get home. And usually I'm the cook in the family. I'm making dinner most nights. It's something that I enjoy doing. And the last quarter of the year, Julie starts cooking. She makes dinners, and she has dinner ready for me whenever I get home after a crazy long, busy day. And usually I can take some leftovers to the office with me the next day. And that way I'm not running out and having to eat some fast food and, ordering a hamburger or running to Taco Bell, something like that. So scheduling, I think, super important.
I couldn't agree more with you. I'm such an advocate for me, it's become normal even in my day-to-day life all year round that my calendar rules my life, really. Anything that needs to be done goes in there, whether it's personal, whether it's business related, and I never miss anything in my calendar. If something's in there, it's going to get done. And like I was talking to an agent the other day, and they're like, how do I always get so busy. I always want to figure out, let's say I want to figure out my go high level automations or something like that. Right. And they'll be like, I just never seem to get to it. And I'm like, well, the problem to me is simple. And I know you probably know exactly where I'm going with this. Like the problem is simple. The solution is simple to me. The problem is that you're just setting it like on a note of things you need to get done, but there's no scheduled time for you to do it. So
you're absolutely right.
what I told this guy is I was like, what you need to do is you need to schedule out, and I tell people this constantly, schedule an appointment with yourself to go in and do this, and treat it like you would treat an appointment with a client. You wouldn't miss an appointment with your client, so why would you miss an appointment with you?
Yes, sir.
And that's how I do everything, And so I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think that is so important. And I'm really glad you also brought up your spouse, your family needs to be on board with what you're trying to do. They need to, and if your family's not on board or you're concerned about that, what I would tell everybody that's watching this is schedule a family meeting and sit everybody down and be like, listen, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm going to be able to accomplish. I'm going to be able to do X, Y, Z in my business over the next couple of months, but I can't do it without your support. I'm not going to be around as much as I normally am. It's not that I don't want to be around. I love you. I care about all of you, but this is something I need to do for our family. And
the why.
The why. Yeah. And I think those two things are, to me, everything is important during AEP, having enough people to talk to, making sure that you're prepared, making sure that all of that stuff. But I think those two things in particular probably are close to the top for me.
Yep. Yep. It really is. It's those things that honestly, I think come from experience.
Yeah.
Going through my first year, I know I'm gonna say a word that is gonna make people cringe probably, but my very first AEP, I was lucky enough to get a Walmart. And
oh yeah. Shouldn't make people cringe. Shouldn't.
Right. But as a brand new agent, not having enough money to market, I definitely had more time than money.
Yeah.
And being able to get into a Walmart, my very first AEP, literally, I had never sold a Medicare policy before AEP of 2018. Had never written anything. And my very first policy that I wrote was inside a Walmart. And I wrote 65, I think. It was like 60 or 65, my first AEP. And that all came from Walmart because I didn't know what else to do at that point.
And that's very good. I think some people certainly demonize the whole the Walmart stores in general, especially when the changes came forward and how it's going to work. My take on the Walmarts was, I think that some locations were good, and the ones that were good were very good, and they were an asset and that kind of thing. But plenty of them were not good. So it was so location based.
Sure, absolutely.
And yeah, that was really my main thing. And my main thing was like, unless you were put in a good location, you can get through this. You can find other things you can do, and maybe they're even better than a location that's a bad location, But I think that I've always looked at them as very good when you're starting off and you have more time than money and that kind of thing. I think people misconstrued it that I was anti-Walmart. That was never what I was trying to be. But it was certainly a topic of conversation there for about a month.
Sure. And then you can outgrow them.
Yeah.
You can figure out ways of making more of an impact in your own business and helping more people. So just because something has worked in the past doesn't mean that you have to stick to it. There are people that will continue to stay in Walmarts. We were talking about the skanks earlier, and they were talking about some of their agents that just killed it every single year in a Walmart, where they would pull 200, 250 apps because they saw everybody in those communities, because everybody went through that Walmart. Yeah. And it really truly is how you work a retail event like that. And I'm going to give a tip. I'm 6'3", and I used to stand next to my table, would stand up the entire time. And eventually I would sit down because somebody would be there with me, or I would be on my iPad looking something up for a client, doing a little bit of work. And I started noticing that when I was sitting down behind the table, the little ladies would come up and they would finally talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I started realizing that being 6'3", standing up, I might be coming across as intimidating to somebody.
Yeah.
And so then I started sitting down the entire time, and people would stop and talk to me because they were standing up. They were taller than me.
Yeah.
And it's that psychological effect. That's why so many late night interviewers, if you ever notice this, their chairs are higher than the couch that their guests are sitting on.
Yeah, that's
And
very true.
it's that psychological effect that you're the person of authority in that situation. You don't have to say a word, but it's also intimidating to many people. And so now I sit down anytime that I'm at an event instead of standing up. That way people can walk over, they feel a little bit more comfortable that way. So there's a tip for anybody that's doing a retail: sit down, see if that works. Now, if you're 5'5", you may not have that issue.
Yes.
You might be plenty inviting, but that's just something that I kind of felt. So
that's a good tip. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, but it just took the experience to figure that out. So
absolutely. I think, I want to be respectful of your time, Michael.
Of course,
I'll kind of, mention this, and then we can kind of close it out here. But, I think another thing too, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, but like, I think another thing too, that agents sometimes always want to skip. Like they just want to have everything figured out and have all the answers when they're going into their first year, their first season, their first AEP. And experience is the best teacher you're going to have. Like, no matter how many tips that Michael and I give you, going into AEP, or how much you study, all that stuff can help you. It can be important, but there's nothing quite like personal experience. And as time goes on, you will learn little things like that. Like, sit down instead of stand up next to your booth, and those kind of little things, something that you probably never would have thought of until you were in that situation,
Mm-hmm.
So if it's your first AEP and you're like, I want to write 150 apps, or I want to write 200 apps, it's my first AEP, and you end up doing 60 or 70, or you end up doing 50, don't beat yourself up.
You can't.
Like it's one of those things where, if you look at most of the people that are doing crazy big numbers during AEP, most of them are vets. Most of them have been doing it a long time. My first AEP I did, I think I did 60 apps my first AEP. I was 21 years old. My best AEP ever, I did about 300. 200 were new, and 100 were rewrites. But I did 200 new applications, my best AEP as an agent. And so, new clients, I should say,
Sure.
And I was multiple years into it at that point. I knew what I was doing. I was seasoned. So give yourself some time would be another thing I would say. Give yourself a chance to get the experience.
Yep. Absolutely right. And that kind of goes, you brought up goals. I am a firm believer in you focus on what you see.
Yeah.
I have goals written out, and they're little personal notes where most people won't be able to interpret them. But I have a goal of writing 500 apps in a year. So I have on a piece of paper stuck to my monitor the number 500. That's my goal. So every time I sit down at my desk, I look at that, and it just kind of reminds me, hey, my goal is 500. That's 1.5 a day, 1.5 apps a day, roughly. So if you're talking about a goal of 200 or 300 apps during AEP,
7.5 weeks.
Right. Yeah, you've got to do the math on that. That's like 5 a day.
Yes.
That's probably not an attainable goal if you have not done 6 months worth of prep work. If you don't
100%.
already have 200 appointments on your calendar beginning October 15th, you're probably not going to hit that, but you know how to do it the next year.
Yep.
So I would say post your goals, write them out. And a lot of people say do it every single day. Get up that morning and write out your goals. It's top of mind for you. But keep things scheduled, and then also stay focused. That's one of the hardest things, especially whenever you start to feel burned out. One of the things that Joshua Young's actually introduced me to is a supplement called Alpha Brain. And Joe Rogan talks about it. It's one of his products that he's part of. And when we were there in Salt Lake this year, Joshua elbowed me and he goes, "Here, take 2 of these. You'll stay focused the rest of the day." And I was like, "All right, Joshua, what in the world are you giving me, dude?" And so I looked at it. I was like, "Oh, okay, I've seen this before." I take it Monday through Friday now. I take it Monday through Friday, and it is amazing. Christian, I'm sure that you're going to be able to kind of relate to this. There are days during AEP where I will have 10 appointments.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I won't remember the people that I met with the first 2 or 3 appointments that day because it's just such a blur. And at the end of the day, whenever I'm sitting there and I've got a stack of files and I'm trying to plug everything into my CRM because I haven't had time between appointments, I'll sit there and go, I don't even remember meeting with these people. Did I really do this? I mean, it's this weird feeling. And not being able to remember people's names and things like that. On Alpha Brain, the name recall is amazing. And it's a supplement. I don't know how much of a placebo it is. I don't really care. All I know is that it works. So during AEP, that kind of led me to think about be healthy as much as you can.
Yeah.
Take some vitamins, take some supplements. You're working yourself and you're really exhausting yourself through all of the mental exercises that you're doing every day. Be kind to yourself and be kind to your brain. And the more that you can support your brain, it's going to be able to support you. I know I sound like a really hinky commercial for something, but I really have come to believe that you have to be able to have enough vitamins and nutrients and things like that for your brain to work on a higher level. And if you're trying to write 200 apps in 7 weeks, you better be taking care of yourself. Absolutely.
Good stuff, buddy. This was great. I really appreciate your time and, all the knowledge that you shared. My last question for you of the video is going to be, how can people get in touch with you if they saw this video and they wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I'd love that. This is the best part of this industry is working with different people, whether that be clients or other agents. So you can reach me on Facebook. I'm pretty active in the groups, of course. You can also give me a phone call. I don't mind if I've got the time and being able to set something. You can give me a shout. Just look me up on Facebook or Google me for Weller Insurance Services. Happy to be able to take a few minutes and talk through whatever issues that you're having or just some fun conversation, whatever works.
You're the man. I appreciate you. This was a great conversation, and we'll have to do it again soon. Maybe after AEP. Maybe after AEP, we'll do a part 2.
Hey, that'd be fantastic.
Guys, if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, drop a like. It helps more agents just like you find the information who need to see this kind of content. Comment your thoughts down below. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.